What's up guys, today I'm joined by Pimp and we're going to be going through the stage 1 predictions of the IEM Cologne Major, and let's just go straight into it and we'll start with your 3-0 predictions here in the stage 1. There's probably a couple of teams that are a little bit above the pack. We've got Gamer Legion, Bait, Bet Boom for example. Who are your top picks for this category?
Yeah, it's a good question, and honestly it's gonna be tough to predict because I think all the teams in stage 1 are incredibly close. As you said, there's certain teams who hold a bit of name value, who as of recently have also shown decent results. As you mentioned, Gamer Legion, Bait, Boom, even regardless of them playing with a stand-in in Flamus. So those are some of the favorites to make it through. The thing is, in order to gain a point in this whole picking thing, when you pick your 3-0, right, you need to be certain, or you need to make sure that it's a team that has a realistic shot at going 3-0. And in all honesty, I don't think there's a clear-cut favorite. I think all teams pretty much can beat each other left, right, and center in this one. So it's gonna be a bit of gambling, to be completely honest.
I think the best of ones make it a bit hard, right? Especially in the opening stages here. So if you had to pick one or two teams, and we can even look at the opening matchups. So for Gamer Legion, we have them facing off against NRG, Bait facing off against Tai Lu, Bet Boom up against Gaimin. So generally pretty favorable matchups, I would say. But what do you make of that?
Yeah, they're a little bit tough, I think the Tai Lu game in particular, like Tai Lu is no easy opponent whatsoever. So that's always a bit of a scary one, especially in a best of one. I think Tai Lu is a team that most people underestimate because we don't see them too much in Europe, but they'll be able to shoot hard and do a good job. If in all honesty, I think Bait is probably the team that I've seen increase the most in form as of late. They had a really, really terrible start to the year, but the last two tournaments they've done a good job, and I think them going up against the Galmin Gladiators in the beginning is at least a game I'd expect them to win, and that puts them one step closer. So it's probably not the team that I would pick, based on pure strength to go 3-0, but they can go 3-0, which is why I'm probably leaning towards putting Bait as one of my 3-0 picks.
Awesome. And then who would you have as your other pick? Because, I mean, once you get into the middle of the pack here, some of these opening games are very 50-50, I'd say. So it makes it a little bit difficult. But out of these teams, who do you think has the strongest chance to be this other 3-0 pick?
I think MIBR with what they...
okay.
I mean, again, a tough opening game for them, but with what they showed at CAC, it was pretty interesting. I think that's a team that can definitely go far. I think Liquid even, I know they're struggling massively, and it's a team in a bit of a crisis, but it's also a team that, are in a bit of a crisis because they play some of the best teams in the world, and they won't have to do that at this tournament. So I think Liquid to me is like, they're one of the teams that potentially could not even make it to stage 2, and if they come in a good shape, and if they figure out what the hell is going on, I think they could be a surprise to go 3-0. So I'm willing to, as I said, gamble a little bit and say Liquid. I'm not even certain they're going to make it through, so put him in as a 3-1, 3-2 is a wasted spot. So I'm putting Liquid as a 3-0 and gamble on the fact that they figure out their stuff.
Oh, okay. I like it. I love a little bit of a gamble. And Liquid going 3-0 is a pretty good one, I think. Like you said, the form's not been great, but they have the potential, in theory, with the quality of the players to definitely make a bit of a run here. Yeah. So let's flip the script now and look at our 0-3, because when we look at the bottom end here, there's a lot of teams that probably have the potential to go 0-3 from this stage. And it's not even necessarily the quality of the players, but maybe just some of the experience internationally is not quite there. Who are the teams that you're looking at in this 0-3 category?
Yeah, it's, as I said, like, it's tough because, as I also said before, I think everyone can beat everyone at this point, to be completely honest. Thunder Down Under, is definitely one of the teams that I would have in contention for that. I think FlyQuest has a bit too much experience to go 0-3. They also have a bit of a habit of actually doing well in the first couple of games. They always go 2-0 and then they find a way to crumble. So FlyQuest is out of the question. I think Thunder Down Under to me is that's the one I'm most comfortable with putting 0-3, even though, as I said, there's a world where they beat an opponent. I think everyone is close. As for the second one, it's tough. Lin Vision wasn't necessarily impressed with them at the CSE, even though lately they've been in a decent shape domestically. Sharks the same, Galmin Gladiators. I think it's between those three teams. I don't think Tai Lu, NRG, MIBR, Sinners, or any of the other teams are going to go 0-3, to be completely honest. If I had to choose, it's between Shark and Galmin Gladiators. Who got the tougher matchup in the opening round?
If we look at Sharks, they're up against Heroic in the first round, and then Gaimin is up against Bet Boom, which probably I would consider to be the tougher matchup.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree. I agree. I think with that, Heroic is also potentially a strong one. I think they'll make it through. But let's go with Gaming Gladiators and
Gaming Gladiators. Okay.
Yeah.
I like it. All right. So when we're looking at our teams that should be making it through here, so teams that are pretty strong, who are the teams that you are looking at who have the highest chance of making it through this stage?
I'd say Gamer Legion for me have been great. They're also a team that definitely could go 3-0. So you could switch them out with Liquid, But then again, like losing one game is a possibility for them. So I think they're safe to go for. I think MIBR, with what they showed me during the CAC just a couple of days ago, is a team that I'm actually quite confident putting 3-1 or 3-2. They should be able to beat most teams on their own level. So I have Gamer Legion and MIBR. Bedboom, same. I think Bedboom, what they showed in Atlanta at IEM was great, promising. They should be able to continue riding that form. Again, they're playing, as far as I know, with Flammers, which technically is a stand-in. So Dilitis is not making it as far as I'm concerned. So that's a caveat. But as with the information we have now, I'm pretty confident putting them as a team to progress. I'd be disappointed if Heroic is not progressing as well. I know it's been a weird season for them, but should be enough quality within Heroic and enough experience within them to make it. And that's when it gets tough, because now we have a lot of teams who I consider to be quite equal.
Yeah, I think the teams in the middle of the category are definitely the toughest ones to decide from because, like you said, a lot of these teams can beat each other. I mean, I don't want to say some of it comes out to luck, but some of it might just come out to map pool, maybe some experience, do you think? Who are you putting as those last two picks there?
That's the thing, right? Do I trust enough in FlyQuest, the experience and everything to them to make it? They should be able to, but I'm not really sure I want
It's a tough call.
bank on it. Yeah, it is. And big as well. What's the expectation of them? They somehow qualified for the major, but I'm not sure how much we expect from them, to be honest. Tyloo is a team I have a good eye for. I think they could surprise. Brought in some new talent as well. Have a couple of cool prospects. So I'll put Tyloo in there as one of my final picks. And then, with one spot left, it's tough. It's, I don't know, M80, NRG. Do we believe in the American copium? I think they've looked a little bit weaker lately compared to where I would like them to be and I expected them to be. So I'm not sure. FlyQuest, Linvision, Sharks, Energy. You know what? It's between. I'm going with FlyQuest. I'm seeing a little bit of an upset right here. They haven't had a great season at all, but with the experience and everything, why not believe a bit in FlyQuest?
Awesome. I love it. So those were the stage 1 pick'ems. Now I want to get your quick, just brief thoughts on the major overall. Who do you think kind of the contenders to actually take this whole thing home? I want to fast forward to the playoffs. We're looking at teams like Vitality, Spirit, potentially Falcons might be in the mix there. What is your kind of read on the form of these teams going into the major? Who do you think has the best chance of winning? And who do you think are potentially able to upset Vitality maybe to take it home for themselves?
Yeah, I think if you asked me a month ago, I wouldn't be too optimistic to be completely honest. I think lately some of those teams have stepped it up. Na'Vi is a great example of a team who's really stepped it up lately. Able to beat Vitality obviously in Atlanta as well, win another trophy, the second of theirs for the season. So in terms of Vitality and trying to close the gap to them, I think there's a decent amount of teams now who's put themselves in the conversation. Now, no doubt that Vitality are the firm favorites to win, regardless of how you look at it, regardless of the pressure, regardless of what happened a couple of weeks ago in Atlanta. But I see 4 other teams with the potential as well to win the tournament, to contend for it. And to me, that's Na'Vi, currently being the second best team in the world. It's Spirit, who showed at Astana that they can definitely play Counter-Strike at a high level and who the last couple of tournaments has done better and better. You can never discredit Dunk as well, always got to be an X factor. Yeah. Then for me, you also have a team like Furia with the experience they have and the level they showed just 3-4 months ago, basically before the new season. They were the main favorites to win in Budapest together with Vitality. You cannot count them out, even though they haven't been looking as great as of late. And then the last one is Falcons, to be completely honest. With the signing of Kerrigan, a bit of that, let's call it Kerrigan magic, Kerrigan feeling. The fact that you've enabled Kyusuke a bit more, and the fact that the 2 tournaments they played with Kerrigan with almost no practice, they got into the grand final of both, albeit disappointing that they lost both grand finals the way they did. One to Spirit, that's okay. The other one to Legacy a couple of days ago was not really cool. But if you're making it back-to-back in finals, then it'll be ridiculous to say that they can potentially go all the way at the major as well.
Of course, yeah. I think the thing with Falcons is the conversation around, do you think they have enough time to actually make Kerrigan work with this lineup? I mean, Kerrigan is an IGL who who historically is able to work with teams that maybe don't have enough practice, but you know, you're heading into the major championship, and this is where teams are putting the most amount of work in. For me, it feels like they might struggle a little bit, but again, you have to put some belief into Carrigan, right, going into this. Would you say though that Vitality is still your favorite to win this whole thing, or are you picking someone else to potentially just take it away from them?
Yeah, in my opinion, Vitality are still the main favorites by quite some margin as well. Them not practicing for Atlanta truly showed, you know, that even when you're the best team probably of all time, like you need to practice, you need to stay in it, and I think they're well aware of that, you know, and despite that, they still won a tournament and still looked okay in Atlanta. So I have no problem saying that I believe with proper practice, proper preparation, and a team like Vitality who doesn't enter the tournament before stage 3 as well, so they have a little bit more lead up time, you know, have had time to now chill a bit more and then really, you know, ramp it up for the major. I'd be surprised if Vitality is at the very least not in the grand final, and then again in the grand final, you know, anything can happen, but making a case for Vitality not being the favorites is very tough.
Sure. All right. That was the video. Thank you, Pimp, for joining us in this video and giving us your thoughts on stage 1 and even the overall kind of placement of where you think the teams are going to be ending up in the completion of this major. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks again, Pimp.